5 prospects who will officially visit Texas coming up this fall. And which one do you think stands out as maybe the best odds? How would you characterize that stitch?
Yeah. So I think, you look at the 5, and there's probably going to be more. Texas obviously does senior year evaluations, and they look at kids, and, we'll see kids probably later in the season, maybe even December. I know that's more kind of, well, I guess not in December. I take that back because now the signing period is December 4th. So that's all transfer portal in December. But maybe, November we see some more visits get set as well, with Florida and Kentucky coming in. But I think the guy you look at right now, so there's 5 official visitors we know of so far, and that's Chase Sims, who's committed to Texas A&M, defensive lineman from Randall High School. Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, who's a 4-star linebacker, currently uncommitted. He goes to IMG Academy. That's kind of been he's kind of been on the radar here and there throughout the year, but that's an official visit that's now set for the Georgia game. And I will say Sims's official visit is set for the Mississippi State game. Then Caleb Bell, who's a recent offer on the long defensive line, he's committed to Arkansas. His date isn't set yet. I talked to him this morning. He's still trying to work it out. So at some point, he does plan to visit. Joseph Mbachu, who's a 3-star defensive lineman, currently committed to Florida. Really interesting kid, teammates with Nick Brooks, the Texas offensive lineman committed at Grayson High School. He was on campus this past weekend for an unofficial visit, and we heard that went great. Haven't caught up with him yet. He's kind of playing phone tag, or we're playing phone tag a little bit, but that he's going to be back for either the Georgia game or the Florida game. So those are still getting set. And then last but not least, and his name is totally escaping me. Why? We talk about these names all day, and then I forget them when it's like the moment I need to talk about them.
Well, Jonah
Williams. I'm thinking of uncommitted guys. But yeah, Jonah Williams, who, notably, that's why everyone thought Texas wasn't really in it in the summer. He didn't take an official visit. He's set for the Georgia game. So, and I bet you we see, and I'll be curious to see how many official visits get set for the Georgia game, because that's just going to be such a crazy weekend that, I can't imagine the staff wants to have a lot of official visitors that weekend just because they can't give the time they probably want to these kids. Outside of, Jonah Williams obviously is committed, so they don't have to go all out, but obviously still like to give them a good official visit. But yeah, out of those 5, obviously Jonah's committed. I think Chase Sims is probably the guy to watch closest. He's 3-star defensive lineman, and he's committed to A&M. He committed in the summer. Texas didn't get him in for an official visit. Obviously, he's taken one this fall. And Texas didn't really push their foot on the gas for him in the summer. There was interest. He was on campus in April. They liked him, but he didn't take an official visit. And not until about mid-July when we started hearing more that Texas was, he's already committed to A&M. Texas was going to start making a push for him. And here we are now, September 17th. The official visit is set for the Mississippi State game. And it's looking like, he's seriously considering, other schools like Texas, like LSU still outside of Texas A&M. So I think that's one to watch. Obviously Texas still wants to take, they have 2 interior guys committed with Myron Charles and Josiah Sharma. But, I would still expect them to take another guy or 2 along the interior defensive line. I think Chase Sims is the one to watch there. And then Joseph Mbachu is really interesting as well. He's committed to Florida. I don't see as a Florida fan how you could feel good about anybody currently committed to your program, because Billy Napier is likely on the way out whenever that does happen. And that's just kind of open the floodgates. And you got to imagine, guys are going to move on. So Joseph Mbachu, I think Texas is right there for him. And Auburn is recruiting him hard to flip. He's gotten a bunch of offers. I think Georgia's in it for him now. USC offered him, but we're hearing Texas and Auburn are kind of the 2 schools to watch if he moves off of Florida. So those 2 I would watch closest. Owusu-Boateng, that's interesting. They're also in play for Madden Faramo, who's not committed anywhere, but one of their top linebacker targets that officially visited in the summer. He has no visit plan set for this fall so far that we know of, but Texas is right there for him. So, how that linebacker equation is going to, come out with Cunningham and Barnes already committed. We'll see. But, yeah, I think Sims and Mbachu are kind of the 2 guys to watch closest.
Hank, how was it for Michael Terry's visit for the UTSA game? Obviously, the Horns are on him hard when it comes to this recruiting process, him being the athlete that he is, kind of the Swiss Army knife for his high school team. How's that process coming along?
Yeah. So that kind of got set up midweek. He was planning on going to the Texas Georgia game in October, but he had nothing going on last weekend, and obviously San Antonio is not far from Austin. He made the trip up. He gave us a brief comment, said went really well. He enjoyed himself. It's still Texas, Oregon, Nebraska for him. He hasn't said whether one leads over the other. I still think Texas has the inside track here. I think they've done the best job recruiting him. But, you see Nebraska playing well. I think he mentioned this. He was saying, it's hard because his whole thing is development. And, he looks at Sark in Texas. He sees these guys getting developed. Obviously, that's a huge plus. He sees Matt Rule, a program builder, and Nebraska doing well and, seemingly having turned a corner up there. We'll see. They're 3 games in. And then Dan Lanning at Oregon, who obviously has churned out a bunch of NFL talent as well. So, it's obvious it's a tough decision for a kid trying to, go through all that. So he's still working on that. When we saw him a couple weeks ago in person, he was saying he was going to make a December decision. I'm still curious to see whether he moves that up. I could still see him deciding to maybe just do it sooner, but nothing's set yet. So we'll see. He's going to be back for the Georgia game. He's going to try to go see an Oregon game, I think. He's already been to Nebraska as well once this season for the Colorado game a couple weeks ago. So, I still think Texas is in a good spot there. I think he likes the plan they have for him on offense. He kind of just being kind of a jack of all trades, whatever, Sark's pretty good at getting the guys, his playmakers the ball in space. And I think Michael Terry has seen that and likes that. And certainly saw that the other night with all the big plays they had. So I think Texas is still in a good spot there whenever he decides to announce.
Hank, a couple of basketball nuggets. You talked to John Clark, the top 50 big man who came in for a visit. What for Rodney Terry? How did that go? How did John Clark's visit go?
Yeah, so he was the only official visitor they had on campus for men's basketball. And this is his 3rd trip. So he's from Houston originally. So he's familiar with the state of Texas. He's at Link Academy in Missouri, which is where Trey Johnson went. So that's a connection Texas has there beyond just, him being from the state of Texas and, having been on campus before. He knows Trey. They're friends. He caught up with him. He spent time with Nick Cody and Caden Shedrick as well. So he had a good visit. He said everything went well. He said he has family in Austin too, so he was able to catch up with them. So that's a plus. But, I asked him about kind of the pitch Rodney Terry has for him and their staff. And, he likes the idea. He's 6'10", 6'9", 6'10". He was saying, it's kind of a positionless basketball that they're kind of pitching him as, where you can kind of, display his full game. And he really liked that. That was a big plus for him, he said. So I think Texas is right there for him. He's from Houston, so Houston's in it as well. He's going to go up to Oklahoma this weekend. And he's going to Ohio State at the beginning of October. But I think it's probably a Texas-Houston battle for him right now, when it comes down to it. But yeah, I think, if you're reading into it, if you're reading into it, he grew up a Texas fan. He was telling me he has a Longhorn stuffed animal. He said Texas has always meant a lot to him. So I think you got to like kind of where they're standing right now. And they got him in after the Houston official visit as well. So they kind of got the last say in terms of probably the 2 biggest contenders. So, but it is interesting. I asked him, you kind of assume these kids, November signing period decisions. He was like, I'm going to aim for November, but if I'm not ready, I can take it into the spring. So that was something of note that, he might not sign traditional, early signing period like most basketball recruits do. So we'll see on that. But I think Texas did a good job with him, and he seemed to really like it a lot. Sorry, my dog's crying, as always. Just never a dull moment over here.
Never a dull moment. Hank, what about on the women's side? Grace Knox, tell us about her, 6'2" wing from Cali.
Yeah. This was an interesting one. So Texas really, Texas women's, from what I've gathered, they have 3 targets, and it's Aaliyah Chavez, obviously the Aaliyah Crump, the commitment, and then Grace Knox. If that was their class, they're good. And they'd be really
number
good.
one, number 4, and number 8 prospects in the country.
It would be something. And so she was in town, coming off an LSU visit. So I haven't caught up with her. Obviously we're trying to build our women's basketball coverage more. They deserve it. They've been doing a lot and doing really well. So haven't heard from her on how that visit went. We'll try to have an interview up from her. But yeah, number 8 player in the country per ESPN from California. It kind of just shows the range that they're recruiting at. California, Crump's from Minnesota, Chavez is in Texas. So, and then Aaliyah Chavez will be on campus Mississippi State weekend. So, if they can get this class put together, obviously Crump's already committed, so they're good there. But if they can add Chavez and Knox, that's obviously the number 1 class, probably one of the best classes ever if you're looking at it in depth.
It's kind of like the Fab 5 at Michigan. If he could pull the Fab 3 at Texas, that would be insane. Hank, anything else that is top of mind on the recruiting front?
Yeah. So this week is Louisiana Monroe. With it, we'll probably see a bunch of commits. We'll probably see commits, but I think the big visitors weekends are really going to be, starting Georgia, Mississippi State. We're going to see official visitors, and we'll see probably some bigger names as SEC opener. Obviously, you want to kind of blow that up where you can, but I think we're going to really see kind of the big visit weekend start with Georgia for good reason. Obviously, that's going to be a hot ticket. We've already. Even in the summer, all the kids were, they want to be at the Georgia game. They want to be at the Georgia game. So, we're going to see that list continue to go. I think Jordan's going to put something up this week as like an early look just because it's already a huge list. So yeah, this week we'll see who shows up. No huge names that we're currently expecting. Obviously, it's Tuesday. Visits can get set up later. Obviously, Texas would love to get Javian Hilson back on campus, the edge rusher that just decommitted from Florida State. If they can get him in, they'd probably love that anytime. He's already taken an official, so it'd be an unofficial visit. So we'll see if anybody shows up. I think there's going to be some unofficial visitors in basketball this weekend. There's no official visits currently scheduled. And then, we'll next week probably have some more bigger names to talk about going into Mississippi State. But, last week, Zalis Hicks committed, 2026 5-star safety. Texas is just kind of humming along in the recruiting trail in both classes, particularly at the safety position. You look what Blake Gideon's done. Zalis Hicks this past week, a month removed from Jonah Williams committing. You got Phil Simi last cycle, got Makuba in the portal, who's lived up to his billing and as being one of the top safeties available. So they're doing really well there.
Do you think Hicks will reclassify to 2025 or?
So we'll see. I asked him. I asked a source about it, and they said it's up to him. And so I asked his coach about it, and his coach said he just doesn't think it's going to be a stretch with the credit. So, maybe he can take some extra classes next semester. I think if he does reclassify, he probably wouldn't be able to join the team until next summer. So we'll see. His coach doesn't think just credits wise he'll be able to, but we'll see. He turned 18 last week when he committed, so he's already older for his grade. So we'll see if he can get some things done. But currently the idea is he's going to be in 2026. But if he is able to, he does have a spot in that 2025 class as well if he wanted to do that.
Yeah, it's been impressive, to say the least. Anyone on commitment watch at this point?
Yeah, I think Michael Terry is one to watch closely. Regardless of him saying December, I think Texas would like to get him in the class. Chase Sims, I think next week when he visits for that Mississippi State game, he's one to watch. Yeah, we'll see. Texas is still really pushing for Kevin Wynn, Florida State defensive line commit. I think any Florida State, like Florida, Florida State's kind of obviously they're 0-3. I don't think that's very appealing for kids looking at that situation right now. Not that Mike Norvell's in the hot seat, but there's just no buzz around them right now. You're losing to Memphis at home. It's just not looking great. So I talked to Kevin this past Sunday, and he wants to get out to Texas for a game. He said Texas and Georgia are the two schools pushing him hardest to flip. So he's from Georgia. So you always kind of have to be wary of Georgia. And then Georgia just passed a new NIL law where the governor signed a new bill saying basically state schools can directly compensate high school athletes via NIL. They just can't use state funds. So that's probably going to open up more, talent straight to Georgia. I would imagine. Georgia Tech is a private school, isn't it? I think. Yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, I think the guys to watch: Michael Terry, Chase Sims, and then maybe some more flips. We'll see. Kevin Wynn's looking at Texas. Javen Hilson's not committed anymore, but he's looking at Texas pretty hard. And then we'll see what October brings.